do we have on tap for this episode?
We're talking NBA Coach of the Year. It's an interesting category. A lot of people in the mix, so to say. And I'll start with Steve Kerr, who last night became the winningest rookie coach in NBA history. In fact, Golden State is having the biggest winning season since like 1975-76. They're nearly approaching the Bulls team from the 90s that Steve Kerr played in that won 70 games. So right now they're sitting at 63 wins, 13 losses.
I feel like every conversation for team greatness is always compared to that Bulls team, right?
Yeah, and also this year everyone's talking about Golden State just kind of doing great all over the place. Steve Kerr, absolutely, he inherited an amazing franchise from Marc Jackson, 3-4 kind of all-star players. Do you have him as a main candidate there?
Well, as we were saying in our show last week, his ability for me to allow guys to flow on offense, like this team in terms of offensive punch has as many weapons as anyone. When you're looking at Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, Iguodala, David Lee.
You got to mention too that Steph is playing differently than he played last year to Marc Jackson. He's playing a lot of off ball. He's kind of people that have to gravitate towards him, and he's getting a lot more assists, dishing out that people are wide open. So they're playing him differently, different sets completely.
No, absolutely. But I think where he doesn't get the credit he deserves is on the defensive end.
Yeah.
How he's really brought that all together. This, to me, close to number one in offensive and defensive efficiency.
Yeah, it's very rare.
He's no small feat. When you're literally having to start, as good as Draymond Green's been, and Andrew Bogut's health, as I call it, the beginning of the season has been paramount to this whole thing. Having that anchor in the middle allows you to play small ball. But Steph Curry is being protected in a lot of ways on defense. Guys like David Lee, when they play, is being protected in a lot of ways. And that's just systems. I think he has to be up there. But there are many, many other options that I think should get a bit of a mention, although Steve Kerr will get a lot of those votes come time for Coach of the Year.
So I wrote down a few names. Here's one I'll throw at you that I really haven't heard much discussed. Kevin McHale, coach of the Houston Rockets. Dwight Howard was down. They've had a lot of injuries. Terrence Jones has been out a lot of the season.
Beverly's out now. They're starting point guard.
So basically, it's been kind of Harden and company, and they could potentially be number 2 in the West.
And they've also been able to buck the trend of having Josh Smith as a serviceable player that translates into wins, right?
Yeah, part of the Bynum gang.
Bynum gang is not a gang you want to be part of. Many gangs, probably not. But I think that's an interesting one because Golden State, while they've been that good, have had health. They've been very healthy all year.
Lucky that way, yeah.
And when you lose your starting center, I don't know how I see Golden State if Andrew Bogut went down the same way that Dwight Howard went down.
I think there's something like 5-7 when Bogut's been out. So, yeah, that's an issue. McHale has played the cards he's been dealt very well. And it's going to be a very interesting week because there's a really, from between 2 and 6 in the West, there's 2-3 games separating them. Apparently the Clippers have the lightest schedule, so the Clippers could actually leapfrog from 5th all the way up to 2nd to go into the playoffs.
So DeAndre hits his free throws. But it's interesting the 2 first guys we bring up have 2 of the MVP contenders, right?
Yeah,
James Harden and Steph Curry, which is no small feat. It goes hand in hand. But I do think with that argument, I'm giving McHale a bit of a notch above, just because I think he had less to work with. I think there were lower expectations.
Well, that's the thing. He's doing really well with low expectations. That means coaching, then.
Well, no, sorry. Maybe I didn't say it right. But I would give my nod to McHale over Kerr because of that.
I see. Okay, so going to the East, because I got a couple guys there too. Mike Budenholzer with Atlanta, a guy who's been off the radar. At the start of the season, I think there's maybe 3 people on the planet who would have predicted that Atlanta would be just killing everyone in the East. They have an 8-game lead in the first place category. They don't have a superstar on their team. These guys have really gelled together in a system that he created and just completely unpredictably a contender right now.
Absolutely, and I think if anyone wants to buy a lottery ticket this upcoming year, give a little tweet to Zach Lowe.
Yeah, and he predicted it.
Yeah, he was one of the very few.
Genius.
He's been calling it forever there at Grantland.com. But you know what? It's one of those teams that, even though I'm a huge basketball guy, I watch it all the time, I watch the stats, I watch everything, I still look at this team, and there's parts of me that wonder how they do it. And they just keep doing it. You know, when you have Al
chemistry is
Horford,
chemistry. You know.
you know, they're not a huge team. They're not incredibly athletic. They don't, you know, there's just, there are very few weaknesses on this team. They can all shoot. They can all, you know, space well. There's no alpha on that team. I mean, you could say Paul Millsap 1 week, but then Jeff Teague has been playing out of his mind. And Al Horford and Kyle Korver. I mean,
and I love their backup point guard, the German guy. He's a heck of a player too.
Yeah, no, that whole team is just on a different level. And I think when you literally, so with the same kind of argument that McHale had, when you're dealing with less and getting more, although maybe that's devaluing guys like Al Horford and Paul Millsap. Maybe that's not being fair. Maybe I'm not giving them the credit due, but I think he does deserve that. Although, again, like Golden State, they have had health.
They have had health, and really, it's weird to give regular season awards because really the postseason is what matters. So I really want to see how these guys compete in the postseason against the West. So that's just a broader issue, but like we said before, Atlanta, no one predicted this. They're doing amazing things that, yeah, you would not see on paper.
No, exactly. And I think, you know, in the East, people could say it's an easier year to win, but they beat some of the best teams in the NBA.
Have, yeah.
And done it pretty handily.
I've got one more
Okay.
I want to throw, and it's an oddball, out of left field candidate for Coach of the Year. Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics is one of the youngest coaches in the league. He lost Rondo. He had Marcus Smart out most of the season. He lost Jeff Green to Memphis. Kelly Olynyk's been injured, and they may still end up with the 8th spot in the East.
Yeah. Did you see that
They
picture?
beat Toronto last. Did you see how he just drew up some random play? He's a very outside the box type of guy. I've met him. He's got a different mindset than most people. He loves to create kind of in timeouts these crazy plays that no one's ever heard of before. He beat the Toronto Raptors at the buzzer in Toronto last night. He's been doing stuff like that all year long.
He's been doing it, and again, just even furthering this, doing more with less.
Yeah.
They lost their best player, and at the start of the year, I thought I was a little bold picking Marcus Smart as Rookie of the Year. I don't think he'll win it, but you know what?
He's picked up his game a lot.
He's picked up his game. When you look at that, did you see the picture of Kelly Olynyk's eye?
Yeah, I did.
That was gruesome.
Canadian.
To say the least.
Good old Canadian
No, but
boy.
Jared Sullinger's been dealing with injuries. Zeller's been playing well, but they don't even have a legit rim protector.
No.
You know, they're a bunch of guys who can score, and it's like, is that not the quintessential definition of a top coach? Someone who can literally take young guys, I don't want to call them scrubs all along, but none of these guys are making all-star games, right? And although I think he's a top candidate, but they have to make the playoffs.
They do.
If they finish 9th, I don't think he's on that in the top 3 conversation. If they do, he is.
Got any more? Like, that's my list.
There are quite a few guys I like. I know it sounds weird, but I'm going to put David Blatt in there.
Yeah.
His ability to turn around the
Well,
season,
he's-
or maybe to defer to LeBron James. What most people don't realize if they haven't heard the history of David Blatt is he comes from Europe, right?
Well,
And-
first of all, he is American. He went to Princeton, then went to Europe afterwards to coach.
yes, but he spent most of his formative coaching years
Yeah.
in Europe, where the culture is very different. The coach it's kind of like college basketball. The coach has a strong, prominent role. And the difference is in the NBA, players often call their own plays. And we saw that little, I wouldn't call it scuffle, but issue with having LeBron James saying he's been calling his own plays for 11 years. And no one batted an eye because everyone expects that. I think it's been a learning curve for Blatt. This has been a brutal
A lot of pressure
first job.
and a lot of transactions, a lot of roster changes mid-season for a rookie coach in the spot like that with the best player in the world playing for your team. You know, when he was brought in to coach this team, LeBron wasn't on the team yet. You know, you have to remember that. He inherited a very difficult situation he walked into. So he wasn't expecting this at all.
Although the funny part is, if he had that team that they originally started out with, I think that would have been a better start for him because there would have been almost no expectations. Kyrie Irving, Wiggins and Tristan Thompson,
Yeah.
Bennett, whatever, and just play with that. No.
Well, I think that's why they brought him in.
I do, but I mean, it's like throwing the guy to the fire, right?
Yeah.
He comes in and he's expected to win right now. You have to also convince, after they did those trades, Kevin Love and LeBron James to sign on the dotted line. which for 2 of the top 10 players in the league is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, 2 months ago we were talking about him being potentially fired, and now we're talking about him as Coach of the Year. That's an interesting situation, you know.
I think he deserves it on that level, but I think there are many, many teams who are playing at a very, very high level. One last name I'm going to throw out there, bit of a homer, but Scott Brooks. I think for too long he's been given the short end of the stick in terms of credit for what he does there in Oklahoma City. A lot of people, including ourselves, thought that the trade of Kendrick Perkins would be the card that topples the house because of his leadership. We saw that Scott Brooks, I think, has more of a prominent role with that team than we give him credit for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Westbrook's stepping up his game to both levels right now, and guys like Cantor are really stepping up as well. With Brady. I'm not a Scotty Brooks guy, but I can see.
That's why we play the games, right? We don't always have to agree.
I can see your story. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's been the Coach of the Year conversation. We'll be right back to the third and final segment here on Hoops on Radio from the Green Room in beautiful Milet. My name's Phil Boileau, aka Sporting Phil, and my co-host Marc Griffin, aka Montreal Marc.